Let me just, yeah, I'm
so
able
that
to.
we have it for future. Do you have access? Can you share your
Yep.
screen? Oh, perfect.
Yep.
Okay.
Oh, actually, no, you know what? It's saying host disabled, so you might have to let me again.
Okay, so let me see if I can from my side.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's now recording and I have given you host access, so take it away.
Okay, perfect. Let me just pull up this. Okay, can everyone see my screen okay? Perfect. So thank you, Sabina. For first, I think I've met some of you at the last year's Christmas party, so I'll just introduce myself. My name is Colin D'Souza. I'm a sales rep, just like all of you. Primarily, I focus on the downtown market, but really anywhere GTA related. As Sabina said, this year has been a pretty successful year for me from a rental standpoint. And as much as I'm presenting today, if you have any questions as we go along, feel free to stop me, ask me any questions. I don't mind having it as a discussion. So without further ado, I'll just get into the details. So to start off, I've kind of split this deck into two formats. So one is when you as an agent, you're representing the landlord. So I've put together like some steps that, you can kind of go through, look at it as a guide for yourself. But this is kind of what's worked for me. So I just wanted to share that with you as a team. And, you can obviously choose to do it whichever way you want. So to start things off, I think the first step is really, as realtors, you want to listen to your client. So really the most important thing is understanding your client's requirements, right? And what I mean by that is not just the price, but understanding where they're at, right? If they're an investor, if they own the property, why is it that they want the price that they want, right? You want to ask those questions. And this is the part where we as realtors should just take a step back and listen, gather the information, right? And then what you do is you go to step two, which is what I call as the CMA of the property, but you're really analyzing the listing, right? Which goes into step 3 and 4, which is really you're analyzing not just the listing, but you're analyzing a lot of different factors. You're trying to figure out, okay, this is what the client thinks that they should get, but in reality, what is the market showing us? How many properties are listed in that building in the same format? What is the current situation? Like COVID, for example, is a game changer. Buildings like downtown in Toronto, when I started doing listings earlier this year, just when, the COVID restrictions got lifted back in, I think it was May or June, half the buildings in Toronto weren't allowing realtors to list properties or do showings. So that's a big problem, right? How are you gonna get people to put in offers when you can't even show the property? So those are the things that you have to understand. You have to also look at, well, how many units are actually on the market, and that's very, very important in my opinion, because as much as a landlord might go online on any of these sites and see, oh, a unit in my building, same square footage, went for 2,500. And they think that they're going to get 2,500. The reality is, well, when did that happen? Like, you want to look at the lease date. So that is very key, right? So what I mean by, the analysis of the current market condition is to actually pull up all those listings. So what I do is, let's just say I take the listing that I'm dealing with, and then I pull up all the listings in the building. And the most important thing, the most accurate measure, in my opinion, is to look at also the unit number. So let's just say, for example, the lease that you're leasing is 705. You want to look at any of the 05s in that building. So whether it's higher than 705, lower than 705, that gives you, in my opinion, the most accurate number. Because let's just say, for example, 2 months prior to you listing this unit, you get a price and it's the exact same square footage layout as your unit. Now you can justify with coming up with your price. right? And what I also recommend is once you've looked at your client's requirements, you figured out what's the right price, you have that discussion with them and you try to set their expectation. The most important thing is sometimes they will be off from that expectation. The reality is most of them are. In my opinion, I think I would say 50% of them listen to me, the other half don't. Step 5, the most important to relate to that, and that is get your writing and get your amount, whatever you're proposing, in writing to them. Because down the road, you don't want to be blamed for, oh, I told you so, this is what happened, he said, she said, all these kinds of issues. I try to avoid it. When I give them a price, I'm not just picking a number out of a hat. I'm giving it based on the facts. So what I do is I actually send them the facts. I send them screenshots of like, okay, these are all the listings. This is what I think you should price it at. And then I do supporting documents. I show them, look in the area, how many units are listed at this price. Do you want to compete all of them or do you want to get people into your unit? Step 6 is timing your listing. I think that's very important. If you start listing your unit on a Saturday, guess what's going to happen? You're going to miss out on a whole bunch of people on that weekend because people usually tend to go and see listings on weekends or they'll go maybe in the evenings. But you want to try to list your unit on a Wednesday, in my opinion, a Tuesday or a Wednesday, the latest, because by then people have seen the unit and now they're booking the showings to come into the unit on the weekend. Also, you have to figure out, if your unit is tenanted or not, because then you have to give 24 hours notice. So for all these factors, I think timing is very important. And lastly, in my honest opinion, in the Toronto market right now, it is a complete renter's market. You need to price it right. If you don't price it right, forget about just sitting on the market. You're not even going to get a showing booked. And I can give you facts like I had a unit, for example, 3 months ago. I told the client, you're not going to get more than 24 to 2,500 for the unit. They were adamant they wanted 2,900 because everybody in the building was getting 3,200 6 months ago. I brought them down to earth a month later because guess what? We didn't even have a single showing booked at 2,900. So you got to be very careful about the pricing, especially on the listing side, because it will stay. Okay. Before I move on to the landlord side, the tenant side, does anybody have any questions, comments, or anything that needs to be clarified?
I had a few questions, Colin, but I'll wait till the end. You might cover them.
Okay,
you might cover them in the next slide.
Okay. So just like on the landlord side, there's key areas to cover when your client is looking for a rental, right? So now you're representing the tenant side. The first step is always the same. You want to understand your client requirements. What I do is I try to list out what are all their requirements. Very important is to, identify all those opportunities or all those requirements, right? So it could be a 1-bedroom, could be space. They want a den. They want 1-bedroom versus 2-bedroom, the bathrooms. You want to also ask, does hydro need to be included? Does it need a balcony? Right now with COVID, it's very important. People want balconies. It's become a big requirement because they don't want to leave the building to have to go for a smoke and go through the elevator and deal with the chaos of COVID. So these are all the questions you want to ask. The second step would be to identify what is the max price they're paying. Chances are once you get their requirements and you get the max price they're going to pay, very key, you're going to realize very quickly once you start doing the research that it's not doable, right? But think about it from a renter standpoint. They're always going to want to pay the lowest price and they're going to want the works, right? So the reality is you as an agent, you need to bring them to reality. And the only way, in my opinion, that how that works is that you analyze the current market conditions, you analyze what the inventory is out there, and then you look at comparables in the buildings and the surrounding areas for that price point that they're looking for, right? And what I do is, so once I get the requirements, I get all the, what they're looking for, I book the showings, right? Now I know realistically that the showings that they want at that price point is not going to meet all their requirements. So I'll add on a few of my recommended showings and I'll tell them, look, if your price was $1,650, we're going to look at $1,750 because based on this market, we can probably push them down to $1,650. If I put my search at $1,650, I'm going to be potentially seeing properties that I could probably put in an offer for $1,550 or maybe even less, right? So what I do is I try to go a little bit higher and I tell them, because the last thing you want is your client saying, I asked you for a $1,650 rental and you're showing me showings for 1750, 1800. That's where you as a realtor can say to them, look, I feel that we can push them down based on this market. So let's go and see it. Once they go and see it, then they come to the realization that their numbers are unrealistic. And guess what? Very quickly, that maximum price in step 2 decides to change. Like, I'll give you an example. My client from 3 weeks ago, her max was 1650. I closed the deal 2 days ago. She paid 1800. So, but if you as an agent come out when she says she wants it for 1650 and you're like, no, that you're not going to get anything, you're wasting my time, blah, 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 chances are he or she is going to not be okay with that. And they're going to be like, well, you don't know what you're talking about, right? So I find the easier way is to give them what they want, but then direct them gently onto the path where you know you're going to close the deal. What I also do is I look at comparables in the building and surrounding area when I'm putting in the offer. You know, that's a great way. And I said the same concept applies on the listing side as well as the tenant side. Easiest way to kind of see what the going rate is. Look at the unit, look at the last couple of digits, look at a different floor if it was listed. But you also want to look at when the other listings were leased at, because that gives you a very good idea in terms of the reality of the pricing. Based on today's market, I say push the limit. And I say this because it is a renter's market. Most of my business in Toronto has come from renters literally moving the same floor. I had one deal that closed. They moved from 708 to 711. Like, it was the same floor. So renters are totally taking advantage of it. And I don't blame them, because you know what? It's the market. If a year ago, they were paying probably $500 more for that same unit. Times have changed. Like, everyone has to pivot, everyone has to adjust, right? Step 6, what I say is always to move quickly when you find a property. Because in this renter's market, what I can tell you is if you find a good property priced well, priced right, it typically goes for, in my opinion, between 2 to 4 days. Okay, because the chances are, if you actually do your research, you will see that the unit was listed more, it was terminated, it was relisted at a lower price. So when they've relisted at a lower price, they have relisted it at the proper price. So it's going to move, especially if it's a nice unit. Again, step 7 is price it right. So when you're putting in an offer, as much as we like to lowball the offer, you got to be realistic. You got to do your research. Like, if a unit is priced at 2,200, where everything is going in at 1,900, go in at 1,800 for an offer, right? But if you've seen that the listing was listed for 2,200 for 2 months, it was terminated, they relisted it for 1,900, you could potentially go and push the limit, right? But if it's listed for 2,300 and you go in at 1,700, you're just going to piss people off and you're going to waste your own time doing all the paperwork. So price it right. What I do is I don't put an irrevocable more than 12 hours. So what I do is I try to put it for 12 hours to push the other agent, the listing agent, into making a decision with his client. Especially if I've seen the property on the market for more than 5 to 6 days, I know that they're desperate, probably, right? So I'm going to move in that format. So that's what I do. And get creative with your offer, so most of my deals on the buyer side, I've got it full ask. I've lowballed the offer. When I say lowball, I've gone $100, $150 lower than asking once I've done my research and I know I can push them. I've always set the record in the building at the lower rent. However, what I've done to sweeten the pot for the landlord is I've offered more than 2 to 3 months rent. A lot of agents, a lot of landlords like that. Now, obviously, by law, we're not allowed to, advise our clients. But I tell my clients, look, if we're going in with a lower price, sometimes a landlord, if their unit's been sitting for 3 months, 4 months, they could do with that extra 2 months rent at that point, right? What I do is I offer an early closing. So if the closing is, if they would typically do a month, I would try to do it quicker. So now the listing goes much quicker for the landlord. So these are all the things I get creative with my offers, and they've seemed to work, especially in this market, right? A year ago, I wouldn't recommend any of these things because it was a different market altogether, right? But you pivot, you adapt to the situation, right? In terms of some analysis, so I've just put this tools in terms of, it's important to know your market, align with your clients' requirements to ensure whether you are, listing a rental or representing a tenant to get the most favorable outcome. So you want to really understand whether you're on both sides, the prospecting unit, comparable units, do your market research, spend some time on that. You want to see what's the length of time for all these units on the market. Gives you a very good indication of where you can push them. Look at units in the same building, as I mentioned, above or below on the same unit number. Look for price changes and terminations. That's important, right? If you see a price change, now you know, okay, what was the previous price? If you see all of a sudden a new listing, look for the terminated lease, because that will tell you how long it's been on the market and how desperate they are, right? And offer, have a conversation with the agent before you put in an offer. Call up the agent and see how, see what the situation is, right? Sometimes the agent will say, no, we're not dropping it a penny under this straight away. So right? You go back to your client. Why are you going to waste all your paperwork and time to just put in an offer that's not going to go through? It's a waste of everyone's time. And lastly, as I mentioned, offers work with a quick closing, maybe more than 2 months deposit, and sometimes a cover letter. If you're competing with other offers, put in a nice letter, showcasing your client why they are a better fit than somebody else, right? I think these are really all the tips that I've kind of done, and it's worked for me this year. And I think, in terms of success, everyone has their own ways, right? Like whatever I'm telling you right now, I'm sure a lot of agents are doing it, but try different things. It's a trial and error, right? Not every way has worked, but every deal is a new deal. So I feel that with this rental market, there's a lot of opportunity. So, and the one thing, as Sabina said at the start, a lot of agents, they don't look at rentals as a good resource of their time. I look at it as a great resource of my time, because I'll tell you this, I don't spend a penny on marketing, right? So from my standpoint, every single deal that I'm doing is going to turn in, like, I'll give you an example. 3 out of my 7 deals, they've just moved here with money from another country, but they wanted to just rent. Guess what? Those 3 have already told me for next year that they want to buy, right? So off the bat, I've got 3 listings that might have costed me what in total 10 to 12 hours of my time, right? I didn't pay a penny. In fact, I got paid because they rented, right? And now next year they're going to be buying. And average home, you guys know, in the GTA or anywhere, is at least $500,000. It's, in my opinion, totally worth it, right? And eventually they've liked my service. They've been recommending other people. So I personally would not say to just step away from it. I would say, in fact, I would encourage it. And especially in downtown, right now, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get into all the buildings and try to get as many renters who want to move units, because there might be people that their leases are coming up for renewal and they're ready to now take advantage of moving from one rental to the other. So I'm trying to reach out to as many people in the downtown core as much. It's tough right now because of the COVID lockdowns. I can't go and physically meet people, but I'm finding ways to try to, meet with property managers, put like an ad in a building. If you want to, if you need help with any real estate, if you're renting, you need to take advantage of the great market, give me a call, right? These are things that I've been doing, and I've been getting calls from that. So some buildings don't allow it, some do. So, it varies from place to place, but, I think that's what I've been doing, and it's kind of worked for me. That's about it from me.
Great, that's excellent. Thank you, Colin. I really appreciate that. Short and sweet, that's how I like it. No, it was to the point, and some really, really good pointers that you had there, because what happens is sometimes we don't see the wood from the trees. And we become so focused on getting our clients something that we forget that we're the expert. Mm-hmm. So whenever I talk to my client, it's as though they're educating me. And I'm like, hold on a minute, let me tell you what it is, because I have the tools to see where the market is heading. And I can tell you, because this is what I do on a daily basis. And for some of us, it is your main source of income. So you're spending those extra hours in trying to deliver that service. And I've said to you time and time again, all the people that are on the call today, it's what sets you apart. We're not selling a product. There's nothing that I have bells and whistles versus any other agent out there. We've got to do things that are going to set us apart from the other agents. And if you do manage to find a niche like Colin has for the leasing, it's amazing. You know, he's putting the two and two together. He's getting people that are coming in. They've obviously got pockets full of money, but they still want to rent right now. Ideal situation. You've done a quick fix for them for the next 12 months or maybe even 24 months. And then they're going to be looking for a property to actually live in, and eventually look for a property to, if you've done your job right, look for a property to invest in. So,
Yeah.
you know, that you've gone full circle. So that's really good. No, I found that interesting. I had a couple of questions, but I wanted to put it out there to these agents first. So please take your first bite. I think we have Lucky with us today. We're lucky to have Lucky, if he's still here. Lucky, you there?
I'm always here, yeah.
Ah, there he is. There he is.
Colin, nice beard, man. I like it.
Thanks, man. It's the COVID look.
COVID look is looking good on you.
Thank you, thank you.
So anyone have any questions for Colin, or just generally? It's all gone quiet.
I wasn't that good, was I?
No, you were great. Okay, so if nobody else has questions, I'm going to ask you some questions. We had last week, we had Amshan give us a quick tour of Instagram and how important it was. And I know in the last couple of minutes, you mentioned that you haven't really spent that much money on marketing dollars. Do you think that apart from going into the property and making yourself known and word of mouth, like referrals, is there anything else that we can do as agents to tap into that market?
Yeah, I think the social media platform is great. I think, definitely, I think tapping that resource is going to give you the leads. It's really ultimately it's a lead generation capability, right? So there's different options, right? Like, I mean, you have the social media route, you have the Instagram and all of those that can help you get there. It's the door knocking that can help you get there. It's different ways that, you can tailor your approach, right? I look at it as I live in downtown. Yeah. Like I'm surrounded by condos. Like if I just go for a walk, I can hit up 10 buildings in a span of half an hour, right? So from my standpoint, I look at it as, in the evenings, I'm going for a walk. I'll go into the building, take a look at their mailbox, see if, that's a strategy I've used, right? Like I've gone in a mailbox. If I see some of the buildings have like advertisements, like, the TVs,
yeah.
where they can advertise, and I always see real estate agents advertising there,
Oh.
So those are the kind of things that I look at. And, it's honestly personal preference, right? Like I have friends of mine who are agents who swear and live by, social media and advertising on there. And they've got a lot of clients that they've generated from there. It's really what works for you. In my opinion, I don't think there's a wrong way. I think, and there's different ways. Like, I mean, there's different cost packages you can try out, see how it works, right? You don't have to go with the
full comprehensive package.
Exactly. Yeah. You can test it out, see how it is, and and then tailor accordingly, right? Mm-hmm. So
okay, so I'm going to pose another question. Say, for example, I'm one of your obnoxious clients, and I've put
got quite a few.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I've put you in a bit of a situation. I'm adamant that I don't want to spend more than $2,000, and I know that looking at the inventory and you're showing me all the comps and what have you. What is it that I can? There's no magic wand. I understand that, but what is it that I can say that really is going to hit ground with this person and try and not make them think the way that I'm thinking, but try and close that deal basically and not leave it lingering?
So I think it's two things. I think so for that $2,000, you have to list all your expectations to me, right? When you show me your expectations, I mean, that's what I'm doing. I'm getting those listings based on those expectations. So as I said, like I had clients just like that. I don't want to pay more than that price, right? I took them to those units. I made them go to those units.
Oh, okay.
And then I know it's a waste of your time, and like it is a waste of an agent's time.
Yeah.
But think about it. I wouldn't. So what I would do is if I'm going and doing showings, like say 10 units for that day, I would give 5 units for whatever they want, right? Like whatever you wanted for that $2,000, I'll show you which I know is not going to meet your requirements, but I'm going to show you that's what you get for $2,000. But then the next 5 units that same day, I'm going to take you to where I know you're going to close. right? And I know it's a waste of time to go to those first 5 units, but in my opinion, it has worked.
Yeah.
Because the minute, like I said, if you tell me that you want 2,000 and I start showing you, I'm like 2,000, you're not going to get what you want. I start showing you 2,200, 2,300. You're never going to come to that realization. Doesn't matter how many listings I show you. I could go to all these other sites. Like I could even tell them, go to Strata, go to House Sigma, because every person in Canada is on House Sigma and Strata.
Yeah.
I'm like, go on there and see it, right? But they will never see it until they physically step foot into that thing, and then they get a shock. They're like, whoa, right? And that's how my client recently, like I bumped her from 1,650. She was like adamant. She didn't want to pay more than 1,650. She signed a lease 2 days ago for 1,800.
Yeah.
Right. So
they've got to see it to believe it, basically.
I think that's my approach. I mean, I don't know how everybody else has handled it, but I feel that, to bring them to reality is the best way possible.
Yeah. Great. Yeah, lovely. Excellent. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? It's very quiet today. I think everyone's on a what do they call it? The mellowed out mode now. They're welcoming the weekend. Well, thank you very much, Colin. I really appreciate that. And thank you everyone for joining. Have yourselves a lovely weekend. Again, just a heads up, if you are coming into the office, or if you want to see Lucky or I, or if you want to meet with anyone here in the office, please do let us know in advance so that we can make arrangements. We're doing, bookings only right now. We've locked the doors again because of the recent announcement. But if you have any questions, you will find this hopefully in the next day or so in the Learning Suite. So if you've missed this, this training session, it'll be in there. And any other questions, just give me a shout. Otherwise, have a lovely weekend.
Thanks,
guys.